Gather round, children, and Granny will tell you a story. Warm yourself by the fire before we travel together to the barren beauty of Utah County, USA, where the earth opens its hungry mouth and swallows men whole. It began on the 24th of November 2009, the night before Thanksgiving, when families should have been gathered in warmth and light, not crawling through the cold, dark belly of Nutty Putty Cave. Susie Matola, barely 5 feet tall, but the best caver in her rescue team, crawled on her belly through a tunnel so tight that her head was jammed sideways. The damp limestone pressed against her from all sides. Her clothes were soaked with sweat and with the sticky brown clay that gave the cave its name. Behind her, ropes trailed from her ankles. A lifeline in case the cave decided to keep her too. The air was thick as soup, smelling of wet stone and fear. For 20 agonizing minutes, she wriggled forward until at last her headlamp caught something in the darkness, a pair of navy and black running shoes, waving listlessly like seaweed in a current. "Hi, John," she called out, her voice steady despite the hammering of her heart. "My name's Susie. How's it going?" The reply came back thin and stretched, like a man crying from the bottom of a well. "Hi, Susie. Thanks for coming. But I really, really want to get out." Oh, children, if only you could have seen the horror of it. John Edward Jones, just 26 years old, a medical student, a father with a baby girl at home and another baby on the way, was crammed into the earth like a rag doll. Head first, upside down, stuck into a fissure barely wider than his shoulders. One arm was pinned under his chest, the other twisted backward at an impossible angle. His legs were suspended uselessly above him, and the rainbow-coloured headlamp he'd worn since childhood lay somewhere in the darkness, its light extinguished. Before today, John hadn't been in these caves since he was a boy. His brother Josh convinced him to go in as part of a big family group gathered for the Thanksgiving holiday. "Just for fun, John, this one last time." And truer words were never spoken. Just after 8 p.m, John, Josh, and a group of friends entered Nutty Putty Caves. John would never see the sunrise again. Standing at 1.82 meters, or 6 feet tall, and weighing around 90 kilograms, John had carefully maneuvered himself through the cave's entrails. Eventually, after exhaling to flatten his chest over a lip of rock, he found himself squeezing head first into a passage measuring a mere 45 centimeters wide and 20 to 25 centimeters high. Believing he had located a part of the cave called the birth canal, where a tight squeeze opens into a larger antechamber, John pushed forward. But instead of being rewarded with a larger room, John found himself wedged upside down in a notorious section of the cave known as Bob's Push, a tunnel even more restrictive than the birth canal. Despite his hopes that the tight space would lead to a larger opening, he had actually entered a dead end. The fissure John slipped into was perfectly sized to take him in, but never let him out, and he had nowhere to go. Outside, the cold desert night was warming into dawn as more than 100 rescuers gathered. They came from every corner of Utah, hardened search and rescue veterans, cavers who knew these tunnels like their own homes. With them were medics who understood the terrible science of what was happening to John's inverted body. They understood that the human body is not designed to be upside down for a long time. The heart needs gravity to work properly, and right now, blood was pooling in John's skull. They understood the relentless pounding pressure on his brain. understood that his own body was crushing him just as surely as the cave was. He was a mouse in the gullet of a snake. For 28 agonizing hours, they fought the cave for John's life. The 120-meter path back up to the entrance was so narrow that only one person could ascend or descend at a time, and every request for new equipment took a full hour to fulfill. They drilled into the stubborn limestone, their bits snapping one after another. They tried and discarded strategies for rescue. One macabre suggestion to break John's legs was a serious possibility. The only reason it was rejected was the fatal strain it would put on his overworked heart. They pumped fluids into John's body to keep that poor failing heart going, even as they knew those same fluids were filling his lungs. Through it all, John talked with them. He joked about getting pancakes when he got out. He begged for his wife Emily, for his baby girl Lizzie, for the child growing in Emily's belly. Susie stayed with him as long as she could, feeding him sips of Gatorade through a tube, cutting away his jeans to gain precious millimeters of space. She told him about the life waiting for him outside, the medical career, the children who needed their father, the wife who adored him. But the cave was patient. It had been waiting thousands of years for this moment. It could wait a little longer. Then came the moment when hope flared brightest, an elaborate pulley system with 15 separate anchors. The pulleys held, the ropes tightened, and John's body began to move. Inch by precious inch, they pulled him free of that terrible crack. Rescuers cheered, tears streaming down their dirty faces. After 19 hours of unimaginable effort, they were winning. Until, with a crack like a gunshot, one of the stone anchors gave way. The rope snapped. A metal carabiner flew through the air, smashing into rescuer Ryan Schertz's face, nearly tearing his tongue in half. Ryan's scream tore through the cave as his world exploded in pain, then faded to blackness. When he came around, blood filled his mouth. Through the haze of agony, his first thought was John. Poor John, who had felt the exhilaration of freedom, then the unending horror of the slip back into the darkness. John was now wedged even deeper than before, landing on his head, and all hope was lost. "John," Ryan gasped through the blood. "I'm hurt. Gotta get out. But it's okay. Someone's coming." His words slurred around the ruin of his tongue as he crawled backward, leaving crimson smears on the limestone. Topside, the rescue team lay sprawled where the snapped rope had thrown them. Susie Matola, the first to reach John, sat stunned in the mud. "It felt like a slap from God himself," she'd say later. Ryan's father, Dave, took his place in the tunnel, drilling new anchor points with shaking hands. When he reached John, the trapped man's voice was fading fast. "I'm gonna die here, aren't I?" John whispered. Dave lied through his teeth. "We're getting you out." But as Dave worked, John kept asking about Ryan. "Is he okay? I think he's really hurt bad." Until his words dissolved into shallow, wet breathing. Midnight approached. Rescuer Brandon Corwallis brought a radio down so Emily could speak to her husband one last time. "Rest now," she urged, her voice cracking through the static. "Just rest." And John was already slipping away, his body finally surrendering to the cave at 11:59 p.m. on the 25th of November. The next morning, Lieutenant Tom Hodgson made the call no rescuer ever wants to make. "We can't recover his body," he told the Jones family on Thanksgiving Day. The cave had won. They sealed Nutty Putty with concrete, making it John's eternal tomb. At the funeral, Ryan Schertz, face still swollen grotesquely, told Emily through stitched lips, "He'll still be there when your baby comes. He'll watch over you." Emily found an unexpected peace. "I don't just believe he's watching over us," she'd later say. "I know he is." Their newborn son, John Edward Jones II, lay peacefully in her arms. So, good children, learn well. If you venture too close to the deep places where ancient hungers sleep lightly, listen carefully to the stone. You may hear the faint, lonely echo of a solitary voice calling you to free them. If you do, breathe deeply and look up gratefully at the open sky above you. Sleep well and check your window.